Welcome to Book Time with Ryan. I am Ryan, and today I'll be talking about Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann. Subtitle, The Osage Murders and the Birth of the FBI. I just spent probably 15 minutes talking about this book, and I never hit record. What a rookie mistake. I did this 2 years ago. How am I doing this again? I suddenly looked up at my phone and I realized there was no countdown at the top of my screen with how long I've been talking. So all my best points have already been made. I probably won't make them again. I'm so sorry. Well, why did I find it? First, why did I read this book? I saw a trailer for a movie that's an upcoming movie that stars Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro. I will probably do a comparison of a review of the book and the movie once I watch the movie. I think it's coming out in October, but I'm not 100% sure. Called Killers of the Flower Moon. Intense trailer. I had no idea what it was about, but I was like, I need to know about that. And I found out it was a book. I was like, I'm going to go get that book and read it. Then I found out it's a National Book Award finalist. And Barnes & Noble was nice enough to put a sticker in the middle of the book that I can't get the stupid sticky stuff off of. Now it's on my fingers. If I'm playing baseball, I'm going to get kicked out of a game. So I didn't know kind of what to expect going into this book. It was a time period. It covers a time period mostly that I'm generally not, I wouldn't say I'm totally unfamiliar with it, but it's maybe a time period that I often overlook. And this is the 1920s, maybe just before 1920s to early 1930s. And it follows the Osage people, a tribe of Native Americans, American Indians, who originated. Their lands were in central the United States, I think in Missouri, or Missouri, if you're from there. And then they were forced to move to Kansas, and eventually they were forced to move to the Oklahoma territories, which eventually became Oklahoma the state. And they essentially occupy a county in Oklahoma called Osage County. And this is about those people. When they were forced into Oklahoma, they were forced into a land that was fairly arid and rocky. And people probably thought, well, they're getting shitty land. But it turns out that the ground under this land was full of oil. And through a lot of negotiations with DC, the people of Osage County, the Osage people, negotiated a right called head rights to shares essentially of the oil that came out of the ground that they were leasing to outsiders. They were allowing people to put up oil wells, and then they would get a portion of what was made off of it. Made them extremely rich, per capita, the richest people in the country. Oh, no. Per capita, the richest people in the world. It says that after oil was discovered beneath their land, they rode in chauffeured cars and lived in mansions. We are mostly following the family of Molly Burkhart, who was married to Ernest Burkhart, and the book really opens with her sister Anna Brown dying. she's an alcoholic, and she's drunk after this party and goes away with the brother of Ernest Burkhart, Brian Burkhart, and later they don't know where she went, and she is found dead in a creek with a bullet hole in the back of her skull, and a lot of questions. And then at the same time, another member of the Osage people was found with a bullet hole, a 32 hole in his head, killed as well. And what we're going to find in this book, and I'm not going to give away a whole lot of stuff in this book, but a lot of people are killed in Osage County. A lot of the Osage people are killed for their head rights, and it's something they can't sell, so it's something that has to be inherited. So you start seeing families being picked off left and right. Some of them are shot, some of them are poisoned, some of them are thrown off of trains, beaten, stabbed. It's a huge problem, and it's called the Reign of Terror for this area. And while we're following Molly's family and the investigation that goes into the murders of her family members, later in the book we also find out that this is something that was going on before the Reign of Terror and after the Reign of Terror. It continued on, and I asked this the last time I filmed without actually filming for this book. Have you ever read a book that just pissed you off? That you looked at it and you said, what the fuck? Fuck him, fuck her, fuck this whole situation. That's how I felt reading this book. Not because of anything David Grann did, the writer, the author. Not because of anything the victims, the Osage people, did. But the situations that they found themselves in, they were so isolated and hung out to dry. I mean, there were all these murders happening. They appealed to authorities in the state, in the county, in the state, in the country, and really got no responses. And part of that's the racism involved with them being Native Americans and people feeling that they're less than human in a lot of ways, or that you wouldn't really go after a white person who committed a crime against a Native American Indian because you're white too. Why would you do that? There's a lot of that. But then there's also policies that were done through the Bureau of Indian Affairs, or that may have been what they were eventually called, but it was part of the Department of the Interior. And essentially, if you were Native American and you were making money in some way for these folks, the Osage, the head rights and the money they were getting from oil that made them millionaires, you weren't trusted to be able to handle your money. So you need to have a guardian. If you were full-blooded Indian, you probably weren't going to be able to handle your money. You would get an allowance, basically. Adults. Full-fledged adults. Some people returning from World War I, not being able to handle their own money because a federal government agency says that they're not competent enough to handle the money. Although, after with other investigations, they found that they spent the same way that a rich white person would spend. There was no foundation for any of this policy. If you were mixed, if you had, let's say you're 50-50, white and Native American, then there was a good chance that you would be found competent to handle your own money. But if you weren't competent to handle your own money, in their eyes, you had to have a guardian. Generally, the guardians were the well-off white business people in your area. And they could determine where your money went, how much you got, how you spent it. You were getting a lot less than you were making. And oftentimes, these guardians were either selling you services at inflated prices. They're getting kickbacks for directing business to other business owners. Sometimes they outright stole. Sometimes they murdered. Sometimes they used false identities to take the money from the Native Americans that they were providing guardianship over. Just everything, it just pissed you off. I was like, I want to go and beat up a guardian, and I'm 100 years too late. But it was the kind of thing where a guardian would buy a car for $250 and then sell it to their Osage person they're representing for $1,250. Just jacking up the price, and then they're pocketing the difference. Horrible. There would also, some of these people were murdered for their insurance, their life insurance. They were given loans at 10 to 50% interest. Just horrible stuff. And they were extremely rich while the oil flowed and while prices were high. And they were just preyed upon for decades. And they couldn't get support to help them find out what was going on, to help them become full-fledged adults that could manage their own money and deal with the murders. They even had to pay for the federal government, the FBI, to come in and investigate. And that is one of the things that really turned this around, at least for the main multiple kind of killing spree that we're going to read about related to Molly Burkhart's family. But there are a lot of people who never were investigated, whose murders were listed as unknown, but because no one took the time to even try. And we will also see an FBI agent named Tom White be the hero. And that's cool because my name's White. My middle name's Thomas. And so I could be Ryan Tom White. But he did a great job. He was one kind of the old school FBI agents when the FBI was just the Bureau of Investigation, not the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and FBI agents couldn't arrest. They could only investigate. So they had to have U.S. Marshals help them. Deputy Marshals help them with arrests. but they were doing the investigations. They didn't even carry guns at the time, although some of them did. Tom White was an old school kind of cowboy, used to be a Texas Ranger, and he wasn't really part of this new breed that J. Edgar Hoover brought into the FBI. The kind of the college boy, clean-cut college boys, respectable black suits, white generally. He was an older breed, wearing a cowboy hat, and had been involved with lots of crime on the frontier. So crime, like fighting crime, not being a part of crime. He's a good character. So that's what this book's about. I don't want to say a whole lot about the details of what happens, because there is a lot of there are moments in this book where you think somebody's good and they're not, or you think somebody's bad and they're not, and it's just kind of exciting to kind of see that develop. So I don't want to ruin that stuff, but I really loved it. I gave it 5 stars. The fact that it's a true story pissed me off in a lot of ways, but it's really well done, and I can't wait to watch the movie or the show or whatever on Apple TV, Apple Films, Apple whatever it's being done on. But really well done, and I highly recommend it. It's a period of time that I really haven't got into very much, and it's I've read some books that involve Native Americans, but really not from this time period. So it was a nice change for me too, and a story I was completely unaware of that really will get you thinking. So check it out. Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann. The Osage Murders and the Birth of the FBI. And when the movie comes out, check it out. I am planning to, and then I am going to do kind of a comparison between the movie and the book. And that's it. So thank you very much. The music that I'm using for this video is, the title of the song is called Osage. So that is the name of the people that were affected directly in the story in this book. Thanks. Have a good one.